Colombian government bad government decisions held for money in the Colombian aeronautical field. The Colombian government, headed by the president Gustavo Petro Rego and his entourage of government directors, and in an irresponsible, disproportionate, and ignorant manner, the Meteorological Authority in Colombia, IDEAM, and the Colombian Civil Aviation Authority, Aerocivil, decide unanimously, arbitrary, and with illegality of all kinds to transfer meteorological functions from IDEAM to Aerocivil at possible cost of great proportions to the operational safety of civil aviation, which may materialize due to the lack of expertise, suitability, and competence which aerocivil public servants assume without the presumed fulfillment of requirements. In the human factors of aviation, technical documents 444 of the ICAO, work stress is more than definite and worded. Work stress manifests itself with uncertainty or that state of job stability in the work environment or the signs that led to labor outsourcing, which behind the backs of public servants are working around with the argument of austerity in spending or that there is not staff to appoint. The loss of constitutional awareness which in the face of the reality or what is currently happening due to the sheer ignorance and incompetence of the meteorological authority in Colombia and the civil aviation authority systematically only leaves the risk of materializing with an air tragedy negatively impacting Colombian society and the levels of security appropriate to the harmonization of international security standards, which ICAO recommends to the countries attached to his international body. The lack of awareness of aerocivil public servants in assuming meteorological functions is a clear example of their incompetence in carrying out an activity for which this staff has not had the training, performance expertise, or academic or skills. The civil public servants, for his refusal to object to some functions, is not that the civil public servants are trained or qualified for these functions. Money is exchanged for health, because through these functions supposedly without fulfilling requirements, the opportunity for a substantial improvement in their income is same. For example, these economic gains represents in overtime and other emoluments, then people agree. The obvious reality of the problem with this assumption of responsibilities is that you are assuming responsibility beyond your skill and abilities. It is not about going into depth 100, 160 hours per hour intensity training, course of training, or in accordance with the Colombian legislation on education, a diploma or certification for nothing. It requires depth. One could think of 1,500 hours for a technical level or 3,600 hours for a technological level. It is not about per hour intensity training, course teaching, right here and press the button. It is about a great discernment of a varied a technical spectrum. When tragedy materializes, the accident happens. The tragedy and search for the weakest link in the chain of error begins. Those who taught on meteorology with an insufficient course of diploma or qualification in this specialty and ill its subspecialty that make up this great technical set will be to blame due to the simple and inadequate lack of skills, techniques, academics, and expertise, and other skills that make up the specialty of meteorology. which can respond and, above all, ensure that the lives of users of Colombian civil aviation have the appropriate and effective levels of security. It's not expected that any public servant who, in the course of his or her duties, has caused a risk of such disastrous proportions to the life of air transport users will have to resort to corrective justice for lack of competence, and the victim of the chat will begin. I didn't know. The testimonies of what has been happening have sprung up like a source of great danger in aviation. All in my life, I have been here for years. We have continued learning and understanding this process at IDEAM. Now the Civil Aviation Authority, Aerocivil, only has one product with the METAR, and it has created an impressive chaos. Now, on April 1, 2025, they begin with a meteorological surveillance and aid. They assume forecasting tags at the aerodrome and at Hague as well, where pilots are warned what is in transit or on roads. So I don't know what's in going to happen. It's a testimony. During my shift, they made several aircraft overtakes. They were unable to land due to adverse weather conditions and data errors. Second testimony. The passenger pays his ticket to airlines. The airlines pays a tax called airport tax. Aerocivil, for this concept, has to provide, must to comply with all that service provides, such as control tower, meteorology, aeronautical firefighters, security, infrastructure, maintenance, technology updates, radars, instruments, and other issues. The Civil Aviation Authority, Aerocivil, has been collecting these taxes or airport fees from airlines. The spirit of Aerocivil is entity is of a technical nature and must comply with the recommendation issued by the international organizations such as the ICAO. The Civil Aviation Authority, Aerocivil, has been committing criminal acts against the administration, felonies for the collection of these taxes, without the effective and correct provision of service to guarantee the fundamental and primitive value of all society, which is security, safe aviation. Air transport users have been exposed to conditions that may seriously endanger their integrity and life, contrary to prudence, prevention, and protection of lives. As quoted by one of the most iconic and prestigious meteorologists in Colombia, Max Enrique Daza, former IDEAM official and meteorologist through his Twitter account X, where he supports this grave and terrible mistake made by the Colombian Meteorological Authority (IDEAM) and the Colombian Civil Aviation Authority (Aerocivil). Air safety in Colombia is in danger. The Meteorological Service for Aviation has historically been provided by IDEAM by law since its creation. However, on March 1st, this service was transferred to the Civil Aeronautics. There are serious doubts about the quality of the service, as my colleagues comments in their attached communication, and this puts the country's air safely at high risk. For a long time, Aerocivil had charged airlines for this service, but this money does not go to IDM's coffers, and it shows, in my opinion, by accepting the transfer of this function to Aerocivil. IDM is giving itself a death blow. IDM lost its capabilities when it was kicked into environmental sector under the tutelage of the Ministry of Environment, and since March 1st, it lost most important function, aeronautical meteorology, RIP. What influence does meteorology have on airport operations? The possibility of predicting adverse and or extreme weather conditions can become a very useful tool to anticipate possible problems and incidents that may affect air traffic management. Therefore, weather forecasting becomes a key element when making decisions to diagnose adverse situations and choose activate preventive actions to try to avoid and mitigate the possible negative impacts caused by the upcoming weather condition. For example, wind forecasts as well as other meteorological variables at different flight levels can help find the most suitable route between an origin and destination. The forecast of intense precipitation can locate cumulonimbus clouds with high vertical speeds. It can represent a danger to aircraft near them, especially during takeoff and landing. The severity of turbulence and ice forecasts help plan the flight route to locate to danger points. Max Enrique Daza, former IDM official and meteorologist. All flights must carry a weather report before departure, containing the current and forecast weather at the airports of origin and destination, and on the route which they cannot fly. Source influence on meteorology on aviation security showcase WordPress team. In the Aeronautical Meteorological Service, the most important premise is forecast. In the technical aeronautical rigor, this is called aeronautical meteorological forecast, which goes hand in hand with meteorological surveillance and meteorological observation. In other words, everything works like a year of flag stage so that users, mainly pilots and crews, can be aware of them. In what sense or what time air operation occur in stage of phase, from the pre-planning of the itineraries through the aircraft take-off phase, the cruise route, and finally the approach and landing. Aeronautical meteorology is present as a specialty in each of them. Therefore, all air transport users define their operating and action capacity according to the report and forecast of meteorological conditions provided by the specialist service, which in this case was delivered by IDEAM until February 28, 2025. To this end, it supplies the products that were used for all of the operational machinery and to ensure both air safely in the face of possible accidents and to avoid the additional costs that may arise due to the poor management of said information, which is what is now a great risk as Aerocivil does not have qualified and specialized personnel to generate the basic operational products. Thus, if at certain airport we have adverse or complex conditions for air operations or is airport within the airspace, airways for transit, approach, radio aids and landing, such as when we have the presence of thunderstorms, heavy rain, turbulence, icing or ice, wind shear on the landing pad, fog, strong winds with gusts and any phase of the flight, it is necessary that suitable specialized expert and exclusively dedicated personnel, since meteorological surveillance is an essential requirement, where and issue the respective report and or aeronautical meteorological products to alert and generate in the companies that use the service and pilots the respective measures and protocols to avoid accidents in a preventive manner or reschedule operations. In this way, meteorological observation, forecasting, and surveillance products such as METAR, space, aerodromo, air airdrome warnings, wind shear warnings, and segment and the honest indicate to report such condition is each phase of flags. A recurring phenomenon in this air operation such as thunderstorms, for example, entails a series of effects that can impact during the different phase of flight that, if not reported accurately, can cause a risk of incidents and air accidents since a common nimbus cloud precursor to these storms also brings with a lot of instability for the aircraft, strong turbulence, icing, and downwinds that can affect the aircraft on approach and landing, phase of flights that are more fragile and dangerous for aircraft. So, all those meteorological parameters that aeronautical meteorology studies and reports, such as clouds, winds, atmospheric pressure, meteorological phenomena, among others, are of capital importance to be monitored by personnel with high expertise and suitability to ensure proper functioning of the aeronautical year at all stages and for a user in such way that an efficient and effective service is guaranteed. Confidential source. In addition, the Colombian Civil Aviation Authority Aerocivil currently has runways in poor condition, airport structures that are falling apart, aerocivil public servants using equipment that not comply with international protection regulation against extreme or dangerous environments that are not in accordance with their risk level, fire engines in poor condition, institutional, winter, or personal close to retirement, among others. Thank you, thank you, thank you.